Now, Democratic Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California. Always good to see you, Congresswoman. Good morning.
Glad to be with you, Chris.
You've written a letter to President Obama seeking clarification on drone attacks and the president's authority. What specifically do you want the White House to answer?
First, let me say, we do have a system of checks and balances. That's fundamental to our democracy. In 2001, after the horrific attacks of 9/11, the Congress voted to give then-President Bush and any subsequent president a blank check, really, to use force in a perpetual war. And I tell you, I did not vote for that resolution, but it has been used over and over and over again. And I think it's time to go back to the drawing board. And I want to know what legal basis the administration is using to conduct drone attacks, but also to conduct other operations, which, in fact, I worried about then, and that was why I ended up actually being the only one who voted against that. But here we are now, and fortunately, today the Washington Post has an article talking about the fact that the administration is really beginning to look at that resolution and to see what makes sense and what does not make sense. But I'm extremely concerned about the checks and balances and Congress giving over our authority to really provide oversight and to declare war in many instances, which is taking place through the executive branch.
As you know, you are in the minority on your side of the aisle. Only one Democratic senator even participated in this filibuster, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon. Let me play just a little clip.
Senator Paul has certainly been digging into these issues in great detail. Frankly, he's raising important issues, and I'd be interested in his thoughts this afternoon.
Obviously, you probably would have liked to have seen more Democrats on that side, but what specifically do you think is missing here? What's not in the equation for you?
What is not in the equation is a full debate. Going back to 2001, this resolution, which was a blank check, as I said, then to President Bush, now to President Obama, that resolution, I believe, maybe 2 or 3 hours of debate. We didn't even understand what, I don't think, was taking place in terms of the really drastic, broad nature of this debate, of that resolution. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board. Of course, Chris, I have a resolution to repeal that authorization, which needs to happen. But minimally, we need to go back and have a full debate, which we did not have in 2001.
Well, the counterterrorism advisor to the White House last month, I think it was, provided what they said was a very detailed account of their use of drones, and you weren't satisfied.
I was not satisfied because, once again, when you look at that resolution doesn't authorize the use of drones. It says take all necessary force against those responsible for 9/11. When you look at the deep of that resolution, it must have been like 4 or 5 lines. And in fact, again, going back to today's article in the Washington Post by Greg Miller and Karen DeYoung, they talk about the fact that there is now, thank goodness, some discussion within the administration regarding the legal basis for not only the use of drones, but for the use of force in other parts of the world. And it's a very dangerous resolution that I believe we passed, and I think we need to get back to the drawing board, put Congress back in the mix. Of course, the president is our commander-in-chief and has the responsibility to keep our country safe. That's not the issue. The issue is congressional authority and responsibility in this whole effort.
Well, let me ask you really quickly, since the vote could come as early as today in the Senate, are you comfortable with John Brennan as CIA director?
Well, let me say, first of all, the president has a right to nominate whomever he or she decides they want in their cabinet and in their administration. And so while I would disagree with many of the actions and the policies that John Brennan actually promoted, the president certainly has a right to nominate whomever he or she deems necessary for that administration to carry out its policies.
Congresswoman Barbara Lee, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Developing